And welcome everybody to yet another Max Resistance Roundtable. The call-in lines are open if you're going to have questions for our guest. This week's guest is the music band Pace House, and 49 also has a special guest which she will introduce in just a moment. The call lines are open. If you have questions, you can call in at 712-432-4365. And if you want to listen via the phone as well, you can listen by calling the number 567-314-9296. And I think it's about much. I wasn't prepared at all, guys. Sorry. 49. If you're ready to take over from here, please take over.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank Brian very much for covering for me while I was gone. I appreciate you guys holding the shows. It was amazing. I listened to them. They were great. Tonight's guest for myself is Ryan Lipinski. He's also known as the Fixed by Doc, and his YouTube channel is Fixed by Doc. And we'll throw some links in the bottom later on for you to see. First, he's a Bachelor of Science Community Health Education. He's focused on health, nutrition, fitness, and a minor in an EMS. Second Bachelor of Science degree was on outdoor recreational leadership and management, both from Northern Michigan University. Also, he graduated from the Military Academy of Health and Sciences as a medical specialist at Fort Sam, Houston, Texas. He is a combat medic in the Army. He also taught CERT teams for FEMA, yay FEMA, and Red Cross, community emergency response teams, developed neighborhood risk education programs, teaches all levels of wilderness first aid, CPR. He teaches bloodborne pathogen prevention. You're amazing. Ryan, I got more to go, and you're just amazing. You teach chain of infectious modules and how to break them, as well as wilderness survival, and you just finished a double header on America Unplugged for the Sportsman Channel, Season 1, Episode 4. Amazing. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have Ryan on the phone tonight, and there's going to be a little bit of delay, so if you can bear with us for the show. Have at her, Ryan. I'd like to have your info and what you thought of the video. We had put in an article about the transfer of the patient doctor who had the Ebola virus.
Well, they did. They started out excellent, and then it was just all downhill from there. Well, first, they should never have brought the patients over here. The number one protocol of the CDC, the United States government, and every agency is you don't bring a Class A infectious disease into a society that does not have an infectious outbreak in it already. Mm-hmm. You don't cross-contaminate. That's the number one protocol. And then, but from there on, when they put them on the plane, they did everything right. But as soon as they took the person off the plane, it just all went to hell from there on. And it's seen from you got over 100-something doctors infected overseas in Africa, and you're starting to see doctors over here being infected, and people showing up in New York and Ohio and Tennessee with the disease already, and it's only been a couple of days.
Right.
Or actually suspected with the disease.
Well, I'm showing the video right now. I don't know. Is my screen showing you guys?
Nope.
Oh.
No, you're not screen sharing yet.
Oh. Well, hang on a second. I'm going to, because I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in regard to that video for the viewers that don't know. Hold on a second. I'm trying.
Are you talking about the video of him being the doctor being taken out of the ambulance and walking out on his own? And there's a couple plainclothes. There's a police officer close by and a photographer, and you can see it on the different angles, and they are not in any protective gear whatsoever, and yet they're about 10 or 15 feet away. Would that, Ryan, would that be anywhere near how to take somebody who has the world's most deadly?
No. That was absolutely ridiculous and beyond. This is a Class A category virus. And what a Class A category virus is a virus that is highly contagious and can be spread from across a population through various means and can be weaponized. And Ebola is one of these viruses that can be very easily weaponized and spread across the country. It's not necessarily proven to be airborne at this time. However, it is suspected to be airborne amongst primates and has been shown to be airborne from pigs to primates, and which means it's only one step away from being airborne amongst humans. And all it takes is to get into the right human with the right immunodeficiency for it to mutate to become airborne. And that's why it's classified as a Class A category disease or virus, and therefore requires a high level of security and a high level of protocols that surround it in order to be transported. That's why they put them in a level 5 transport situation on the airplane. What I refer to as a double bubble. They stuck them in a bubble and then stuck that bubble in another bubble and then transported it. But as soon as they took them off the plane, they stuck them in the wrong kind of suit to begin with, put them in an ambulance, brought them over with no escort or anything, and then as soon as they brought them out of the ambulance in front of the hospital, they got all these people walking around. If there's 1 or 2 people you see on the video in plain clothes right there, imagine how many people in that hospital were walking around in plain clothes within feet of this guy. And the suit he's in is the type of suit you would put somebody in. Imagine you're 100% healthy, and you wanted to walk through a room full of people with SARS. That's the type of suit you would put on to prevent yourself from getting sick, not the type of suit you would put on if you were the one sick and wanted to prevent other people from getting sick.
Also,
different types of suits.
You know, the fact that he gets out on himself and that he's walking, I mean, he could easily fall and trip. He walks on a patch of gravel.
On gravel.
You know, and how does that make any sense?
Gravel which can easily tear the suit.
Exactly.
Just a Tyvek suit.
Sure,
So,
and his boots are kind of falling off. I think he's the patient on the right. The other one seems to be assisting, and his boots are falling off. He's walking sideways. I'm not sure which is the patient.
49, have you seen, I put up a video earlier today that showed the opposite angle, and you could see several other plainclothes people that were standing around as well. I know this is the Dutch Since one, but there's no doubt that this was all for show, in my opinion. And I want to ask Ryan, because I've done so much work into this, and I've been really ripping into CNN, and I don't know if you've noticed, but Sanjay Gupta is Mr. Ebola, and he has been on this story since it broke, basically, covering it. He is interviewing all the doctors and all that. Now, they had 6 patients that they suspected of Ebola in New York City, and what he was saying completely contradicts what you said. He said that they're not at all worried about these patients because even if they do have Ebola, there's no risk whatsoever of it spreading. And they didn't need to put them in any sort of isolation, and that it's not airborne and all that. And I couldn't believe it because I've watched so much, read so much on Ebola, and to me it's just like you say, they never take chances with the world's most deadly disease.
Here's something you can do when the talk show's over. Type in Category A contagious diseases and viruses on Google. And then you look it up, and it's listed under Category A. Is listed under there is human form of Ebola. Okay? And it's listed as Category A because it can be weaponized. So any patient with Ebola must be treated as if they are a Category A disease or infectious. And that means they have to have armed escorts. That means they're supposed to be transported. Whenever they're transported in an ambulance, they have to have a lead vehicle and a follow-up vehicle to ensure that the ambulance that they're in, when they cross intersections and stuff like that, the intersections are clear, because if there's a car accident, then, you know, I mean, how many gruesome car accidents do you need to see before you realize that blood and bodily fluids are involved in car accidents?
Exactly.
Okay? So the disease is human-to-human transfer via direct contact with blood or bodily fluids from an infected person, including like your snot, from sneezing or whatever. You can sneeze particles. It's been proven in laboratories with Ebola that particles as small as 0.8 to 1.2 micrometers in size, which is about the average sneeze. When you sneeze, those particles can travel 20 to 30 miles per hour through the air. If you're outside and they catch an updraft from the wind, they can travel up to 30, 40, 50 feet away. If you're in a classroom of students, when the classroom, a student could be on one end of the classroom and the opposite diagonal corner of the other end, another student could be, and collect all that stuff. They may not feel it land on them, but those particles can land on the other person on the other side. So some doctors will say that that's airborne, and some doctors will say that's not airborne. Some doctors say that airborne is considered a gaseous state, where you know, it's more of a fume, or like on your breath. And some doctors will say anything that can travel through the air and survive the transport from one person to the next. So it's all in your definition of what airborne is. And you can find a million scientists on the net to say both sides.
And does Ebola have the ability to survive outside a host for a period of time?
Yes, that's how it becomes transmitted. Semen, for example, if you are infected with Ebola and somehow survive, because it has a 50 to 90% death rate. So if you're one of the lucky people, 10 to 50% of the people that can survive, you become healthy. You get Ebola, you become healthy and whatnot. It stays in your semen for another 50 to 60 days later. Okay, so you can have sex after you've fully recovered from having Ebola. And you can have sex with the person, and it's in your semen. And it can survive. They can get it even though you're fully recovered. They can get it from, say you ejaculate into a condom, and then somebody comes around and picks up that condom 24 hours later. You know, as long as it's still moist and not dried up, it can still be transmitted that way. You sneeze, you have the infection in your system right now, okay? You sneeze into that, you don't know it, you're in the incubation stage, okay? And you sneeze into that Kleenex, and you're at a restaurant, and you set the Kleenex down on the table, that busboy comes when you leave and picks up that Kleenex and gets it on his hand, and then he takes it, he doesn't realize it, you know, and he throws the stuff away, and then he wipes his face, gets it in the mucous membranes in his eyes or in his mouth or something like that. He just transmits it to himself. He becomes an incubator for anywhere from 7 to 10 days to 3 weeks, I think it is, the incubation stage. And it can transmit that way. And so it can last for anywhere. There's no specific information out there that says that I can find that says exactly for how long Ebola can last. But it can last because it's transmittable through contact of bodily fluids. Usually that means until the bodily fluid has dried up or been exposed to extreme temperatures. So at room temperature, and as long as the bodily fluids are in a liquid state, then it should be considered contagious.
Wow. And you were telling me when we were in conversation that a flu virus is a level 2. What this guy was being transported in is a level 1 suit. Now you're saying that Ebola is level 4, correct?
It's considered level 4 because it can be weaponized, and because it can't be cured. There's no virus. You can treat the symptoms of it and hope that the human body can is strong enough to fight it off, which is why it has such a high death rate, or 50 to 90%. Most of the diseases or viruses don't have that kind of.
Have you heard, though, about the cure that they supposedly have found and that they applied to the doctor that was infected, and that his symptoms instantly changed within an hour? He was remarkably improved, they said, and then, of course, they showed in the CNN video how he was able to climb out of the hospital himself, and they were saying that is the remarkable effect of this serum that they have developed. And the method, now this is where my limits come to describing these things, but as far as I know, it's a method where they say that they inject primates with the Ebola vaccination, and then they extract the cells that are fighting.
Ebola vaccination.
Pardon me?
They inject them with the live version.
Yes. So what do you make of that? I mean, does it make any sense to you?
Not really, because they're ultimately causing the spread of the disease in order to create a cure for it, and that's kind of a little bit backwards.
Yeah, it's magical to them, because what they're saying on CNN and CBC and all the corporate media is that they have found the secret serum and Sanjay Gupta, I can quote him, he actually said that we have not tested this yet on animals. It's completely in the experimental stages, but we now see that it has worked, and now we might be able to find a way of getting it to the masses. And he really made that point in the video that I diagnosed, that this was some sort of super serum, and it's all over the internet. If you Google it, there's all this information. It was developed in Canada along with the USAID or whatever, I can't remember the name of the infectious disease control command, whatever they're called. But to me, it just I just don't buy it.
You know what's
right.
super secret vaccine? They combine rabies with the Ebola virus to come up with this vaccine.
Right, like in 28 days later.
You read the patent.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ryan. That was similar to what they did in 28 days later. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody's seen the movie 28 Days Later, which was just a few years before, they start. If you look up at the patents in real life, if you go online and you look at the patents for this miracle vaccine, they mixed rabies with the Ebola to come up with the vaccine. Now, when they were inventing this, if you look at the dates and stuff, when they were inventing this, it's right about the same time, give or take a few months, as when the movie came out 28 days later with the vaccine that caused rage, where in the movies, they took rabies and mixed it with the exact same strain of Ebola to create a live vaccine to give to primates and a dead vaccine to give to humans. And then when they put it into the primates, it became airborne, it mutated and became airborne and turned into rage, and then the primates, transmitted, and then you get the whole zombie effect from it. But the point is, it's the exact same methodology in the movie that they're doing right now. And it predated everything that's going on right now by a couple of years. And then right at the same time that movie came out, was right when they were experimenting and testing the stuff. And then in 2012, they filed for a patent for the rabies Ebola vaccine combo, the exact same thing that they had in the movie. And then shortly after that, the movie World War Z comes out. In World War Z, they have the same thing. The Ebola virus is the cause of this mass pandemic all around the world. And what do they find to stop it? To fight the virus with, again, another major substance like rabies that they inject into people to fight the Ebola. And So it's pretty much what I get out of that is that they knew in advance that there was a mutated version of Ebola out there, and they were working on a vaccine because their own patents, patents that you can look up in Canada and United States government websites that we can't personally alter or anything. We can access them and we can look at them. I have the links to it too, where you can actually link to the government websites and see these patents. And they're working on it. And what's the best way to desensitize the population to get them so they don't freak out about it and they don't worry about it? And they're not like, what's the best way to move a whole bunch of soldiers through your town before, in order to prevent people from freaking out? Why are all these soldiers in my town? You get them used to seeing soldiers.
Right.
Exactly.
You don't want people freaking out to disease outbreaks. Get them used to seeing it all the time in the movies. So they post a movie exactly showing what the disease. Now, the theatrics may be different. The timeline may be different. And the outcome is different. There may not be actual zombies running around, but the disease is real, and the vaccine is real, and the cause is real.
Right, but you look at it, and rage is a good thing to call it if the basis of it is rabies, because people who've had rabies, they do get enraged, they're short-tempered, they tend to bite, same as the rabid animal does. It's called rabid for a reason, right? And the mindset has started into the whole zombie scenario. I really do believe that they're conditioning the public to accept it or be prepared on some kind of psychological level, to be prepared for what's about to hit, or what could possibly hit.
Has done a lot of work on this, and I'm sure he could come in with some good filler here with dealing with this in all the movies, right, Red Pill? They've been telegraphing this for some time.
Yes.
Is he there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, definitely, and I'm glad you guys are talking about it. That is so obvious and in your face. It is really insane, and as Ryan was talking about, that's unbelievable. I didn't even look into the World War Z details about the vaccine and the actual virus, but that is correct. So what's interesting about the rabies, though, 49, is so there are two forms of rabies, paralytic and furious, right? So now the furious rabies is characterized by the extreme, like you said, the extreme behavioral changes, overt aggression, attack behavior. They could tweak that and make that just like the zombie attacks we have seen in the past few years, and similar to the movies. Maybe not to the same effect, of course. It's exaggerated in the movies, but it's enough.
Yeah, but a good example is the bath salts, right? And I wanted Ryan to elaborate a little bit on the whole fact of what the protocols would have been if they had walked this guy over gravel. What would the proper protocols have been if this were a real scenario?
Okay. If this were a real scenario, well, number one, they never would have brought him to America because they wouldn't have risked an outbreak in a society that did not have the disease to begin with. So in a real scenario, it never would have got that to that point. But let's say that they did decide to bring him in anyway. They would have brought him in the level 4 or level 5 containment, which they did in real life in the airplane. But when the airplane landed, they would have set up a vacuum tube or a compression tube tunnel to the airplane and to a specially modified ambulance, not just a regular old city ambulance. They would have brought in a military-style ambulance, the kind I used to drive, and I used to drive an M995 field ambulance, which has an NBC filtration system mounted to the roof. And what that filtration system does is I can flip a switch, and it can either create a vacuum where it will draw out outside air and into the vehicle and suck everything through a filter before it goes back outside. That means anybody with contagious disease on the inside, the disease can't go out of the vehicle without first being scrubbed through a multi-stage filtration system powerful enough to filter out nuclear radiation. And then, same as reverse, if I was going to drive it through a biological war zone, I flip the switch one way, and it filters all the air coming in and highly pressurizes the ambulance on the inside, pushing everything outwards so that people inside don't get infected. So depending on which way you need to go. They would have had that style of ambulance there. And then they would have connected this vacuum tunnel to it, which would be double-walled. The inside wall would be just a normal tunnel. The people walking through it wouldn't feel any type of vacuum or anything. Then it'd have an outer wall with a hole between the two walls, and that hall would have a vacuum through it, which would go through a scrubber. So it'd have an intake and an outtake, and basically so that if the infection were to escape from the patient would be in some sort of a bubble suit if he could walk. If he couldn't walk, it'd be on a bubble gurney. If you looked on in the TV news media videos, they show a gurney that the patient's not even in, but they have the little gloves, and they say, look, you can even stick your hands in these gloves, and you can work on the patient, and they're completely sealed and secured inside this gurney so that they don't get anybody infected. If they couldn't walk, they'd be in something like that. If they could walk and they were in just the beginning stages, then they'd be in a similar thing, but one that they could walk in. They would walk through this tunnel. If that suit were to malfunction, then that first stage would prevent it from escaping. And by sucking all the air out and filtering it through the scrubbers so that it couldn't get out into the atmosphere. And then that tunnel would connect to the ambulance, which is doing the same thing. And then they would shut it down. And when it's done, they would normally roll it all up and burn it and incinerate it in a special procedure. Then that ambulance would have an escort, one in front and one behind, of an armed police escort or military escort. Most likely it would have been DOD or FEMA, and they would have transported it. Not because Ebola is a major threat as is by itself, but because it's listed as a Category A weaponizable virus. That's why. Because of its category, it must be treated this way. And because it can easily be cross-contaminated, through bodily fluids.
So what is your best guess at what was the whole charade about? Because it's obvious to me, and I think everyone here, that that was a spectacle for us to behold. It's not the real thing. There's no way. I said this in my videos. I'm no expert, but I'm glad we have one on here. Just basically agreeing with everything that I'd said before, that there's no way that is the proper way that they would go about something so deadly as Ebola. So what is your best guess at why they have gone through this whole sort of charade?
Well, our government is excellent at staging false flags. We've staged false flags for every war that we've been in. We staged a false flag so that we could go to Vietnam. We staged a false flag so that we could attack Japan. We staged false flags so that we could join into World War I and World War II. We staged the biggest false flag of them all, 9/11, and we staged false flags so that we could go in and take over the 5 stages of the Desert Storm Wars and everything, for all the taking over and messing with the whole political governments over in Iran and Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, and all those other places over there that we've been messing around with for all these years since the 80s. We always stage a false flag attack on that. The only thing left, we've destabilized the world. Our government's already destabilized the world. We're in control all over the world. We're losing control of the United States. And if you look back a couple of years ago, President Obama started asking people in the government, if we went to civil war, if we had a revolutionary war here, would you back the government or would you back the people? Would you back the militias? Those who claim to back the militias have either disappeared, died, or been fired or forced to resign, and then something's happened to them, or you know, they are just been plain disqualified and
well, yeah, there was a giant purge. Hundreds of generals were lost their positions within the, you know. So yeah.
I believe most of them lost their jobs because they refused to fire on American citizens. There's also been question has been passed along as well through military asking if they'll fire upon
Brian,
American
you're not coming in.
Yeah. No, I hear him good.
Oh, now that
I can hear him too.
Yeah.
oh, you can hear him. I can't hear him. Okay. I'm hearing Max Headroom here.
I'm just sitting here wondering, you know, why I wouldn't come in if everybody's hearing me. But like I was saying, this happened in the military as well. With you know, they asked a whole bunch of military men if they would fire on U.S. citizens. All the ones that said no were purged. All the ones that said yes, of course, were promoted.
Great, we got all the psychos running the show.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and these questions were asked as far back as 2004.
Look at the executive orders over the last term of President Obama. You go to type in President Obama executive orders, and it takes you to a government website like www.gov, and then go to the link for executive orders. Again, a government website so that everybody can't claim conspiracy theory websites and everything else. You go straight to the horse's mouth, straight to the source. There's 923 executive orders. Not all of them are brand new Obama orders, but they are amendments and stuff like that. Scroll through and you will see a crap ton of executive orders, which means Obama put them in, forced them in, and Congress didn't get to say anything about it. Nobody got to vote on it. That means an executive order means I'm going to do this irregardless of what the country and the politicians and everybody says. This is me. Yes. Suck it.
Yes, the exact same thing he said on his campaign trail or campaign trail that he would not do.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if Ryan saw. I saw this off the Potter blog there, Pissing on the Roses, but they put this video out in April. I think it was April the 11th. I remember it lit up alarm bells in my mind. They had sent out Ebola detection kits to all 50 states.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, whoa, what? You know, what's going on? It's just another piece of evidence to suggest that this is a master plan that's in action that we're witnessing. That's why I've been working so hard on it, by the way, guys.
A couple of executive orders I'd like you and the listeners to check out. Now, there's a lot of them. We've got to scroll through them. But
oh, I think we lost him, producer.
Yep. He dropped for a moment. Oh, here he comes.
If you can scroll through these executive orders, you will see right shortly after he put out that survey about will you stand with the government or stand with the people, he came out with a executive order for each political branch, including the EPA, the DOD, the Department of Agriculture, CDC, everything, every political branch office out there. He wrote up an executive order, and that executive order discusses the order of succession. So if you go to the executive orders list and you don't want to waste time scrolling through, type in executive orders for order of succession, and you get a whole list of them. So basically what he's done is he handpicked who will take charge of each political organization in the event that crap hits the fan and they enact a national state of emergency and call for martial law. Then any of the head directors of any of the agencies that he deems is unfit to follow his orders at that time, they are immediately removed from office, and these executive orders take place to assign the people that he handpicked to succeed them. And you can see that I just went through them a couple of days ago. And they're right there for everybody to see on the government website. Then there's another executive order that says that they plan to use the post office to deliver, and this has been around for years, but they keep amending it, to use the post office to deliver vaccines.
Right.
And anybody who refused the vaccine from the postal office is to be reported, and then they send a team out. And if the post office notices anybody coughing or sneezing or anything like that, then the team comes out and takes your whole family away and puts you in a camp.
Do you have a link to that particular executive order?
I just put it in the chat room.
Okay, you put it in the chat. Yeah. That's mind blowing.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's one more executive order that is both Bush put out and then Obama put out, altering it. It's about a national state of emergency based on biological or chemical warfare on the United States. And those executive orders detail exactly how the government will react in the event there's a biological outbreak in the United States, which leads me to answer your question that you asked a little bit a while ago about why do I think that they brought these patients in to the United States when we did not have any Ebola cases here in the United States, and why did they bring them in break protocol? Well, we all know that, or we should know, if you've been following Obama's elections and everything for the last several years, that since Obama got into the office, he's tried 3 times to either create a way that he can run for a 3rd election or stay in office for life. He's tried to create a life term in office or create a 3rd election possibility. And he failed in every attempt. However, thanks to W. Bush and thanks to the executive order that instated the what's it called?
The NDAA?
National Defense Authorization Act?
Where it allows them to spy on us and everything. I can't remember the name of it.
Patriot Act.
The one where they allow them. Yeah, the Patriot Act. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
When they engaged the Patriot Act and allowed that law under the Patriot Act, it gives the president the ability to call for martial law, and then when they call for martial law, that the president can assign anybody he wants to take charge. Well, President Bush arranged for a list of FEMA executive orders for FEMA, and there's a whole list on there which you can find online just about anywhere. But if you go to the government website and look up these FEMA order numbers, which I have the whole list here, which I believe I've shared with 49, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I'm just searching them right now and throwing them in the website for everybody.
Yeah, if you could put those links up, that would be.
Order give FEMA the power to confiscate your home, your land, your vehicles, your family. They can come in under these executive orders and take your entire family to use them for a workforce. First, that's an executive order for slavery. And,
I'm getting some. If I can interject.
Executive orders.
If I can interject for 1 second, I'm getting some breaking news from Ryan over at FPRN, who said that the State Department is now saying that there will be an Ebola attack.
Well, I saw the video. I think that's the one that he's referring to, where there is a woman from the State Department, and she's speaking, and then she says this Ebola attack. And could that be what he's referring to?
That could be what he's referring to. He didn't specifically say. He just gave the headline.
If I may,
I saw that same video. Go ahead, Red Pill.
I'm sorry if I may. I believe that's what that is. Is there was a slip of the tongue, and she corrected herself. That's what I heard.
Yep, that's what I got out of it. That it was, and it's one of those things that they can easily dismiss and just say, well, she meant that there's an outbreak, but she clearly said attack.
Yeah.
So it's another way of them telegraphing. It's another way of them messing up their lines. They mess up their lines all the time. They mess up everything. They can't seem to pull anything off properly. Maybe they're doing it on purpose so that people like us pick up on all these things so that they can easily identify us when the outbreak happens, and we'll be the first doors that they smash down. It's kind of like watching a Jason A movie come to life. It is. I honestly don't think there's a scarier scenario than having an Ebola outbreak, which may be not even an Ebola outbreak. It might just be a way of bringing in the New World Order and rounding up all the dissidents and bringing in the endgame.
Well, the government always comes in and says, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Executive order that brings in that stands for what the government will do in the event of a biological outbreak, which both President Bush and President Obama have put in place, says that in the event of a biological outbreak, an immediate action will take place to place the land under martial law and bring in troops to contain anybody who even looks or appears to maybe have the disease. So if you cough, and it goes out and lists if you cough or sneeze or sweaty or anything like that.
Well, they even said in the executive order that there's a provision to round up well-being, people that look perfectly fine but may have had contact, or they, for some reason they're suspicious about them.
Exactly.
So it's just a broad thing. They can pick up anybody they want.
Mm-hmm.
So if all Obama needs to do is have an excuse. It doesn't actually have to happen. He just has to have the excuse. So what my thinking is this is the perfect excuse for him to swipe that pen, writing off the Constitution, writing off the Congress, writing off the rest of the government and all the voting and everything else, like voting ever really mattered anyway for the last 150 years, but you get the point. And telling everybody, hey, we're in a national crisis because we have an Ebola outbreak, and let's blame it on we're not going to blame it on the two people we brought over here. Let's blame it on the doctor that self-quarantined in Tennessee, or let's blame it on these tens of thousands of illegal aliens that we let cross the border. Well, we didn't let them cross the border. They crossed the border illegally, but there was nothing we could do about it except give them amnesty.
They're given a nice escort.
Well,
yeah, we give them bus rides and EBT cards.
Yeah.
All sick and poor health and everything else. Not all of them are sick, but some of them are sick and poor health and everything. It's the perfect excuse. There's 1,000 of them here and 1,000 of them there in all of our major southern cities, and they have this miracle super secret vaccine that they have to test. Now, if you were one of these thousands of illegal aliens and you came across the border illegally, and you know that if you get deported back to the country you came from, their priority is to put a bullet in your head and execute you or jail you for life. That's what happens if you're an illegal Mexican and you come across the border and you get deported back. Chances are you go to jail in Mexico. So, or if you come in from Cuba or something like that, they kill you. So, so your option is Mr. Obama and his buddies come over and say, hey, you want to stay in America? Sure. We'll give you amnesty. Here's your Walmart credit card, which we all know, and we've seen the videos. A friend of mine got a video of it. And another friend of mine here in the same town as me works at the VA hospital in Pittsburgh, and he physically saw them getting off the bus going shopping with their VA, with their government-issued Walmart cards and going shopping and everything at our taxpayers' expenses. So now they're saying, well, we gave you money, we gave you housing, but if you really want your amnesty, you want to stay here, take this vaccine. And they're like, okay, we signed the sheet. And we signed the waiver, and we take this experimental vaccine. The vaccine gets into the people. It mutates because it's not thoroughly tested, because any patent takes up to 10 years to be thoroughly tested and before it can be approved for human production, because it takes 10 years or one generation to determine if this can have any genetic effects on the human body. And
right.
so,
Ryan, you looked into the numbers on when the patents were applied, and I would like you to explain to the audience of when the patents would actually be approved.
Well, the patent was applied for in 2012. This is 2014, 2 years later, and they're talking about administering the vaccine that they applied for the patent in 2012. Now it's 2014. The patent shouldn't even be considered, not even considered for human use until 2020. The only time they have ever done something like this is when there was an immediate outbreak of something, like anthrax. Remember the anthrax vaccine when they had that anthrax breakout and somebody was mailing those letters? They came out with a vaccine that was about a year and a half tested, and guess what? Over 1 million people died from the vaccine itself.
That's right.
I know, because when I was in the military at the time, and they started handing out those vaccines, and I told them no. And they told every soldier in the military, if you don't take this vaccine, you will get an Article 15. That's basically serious trouble. They take away your pay for a month and a half, and you get put on this extra duty. They treat you like crap for 45 days, and you get in some serious trouble. They even take your rank away. I told them, no, I won't take it. I took it all the way to court-martial, and I beat it. But the point is that they were forcing soldiers to take these vaccines knowing that it was only less than 2 years tested, and over 1 million people died from the vaccine alone. That is why you wait 10 years to find out what the health effects are going to be before you give it to humans, because we just don't know. 1 million people dying from a vaccine, an untested vaccine, but you still give it to them, it's
That's what they do, right? I mean, this is what these pharmaceutical monster companies do. I mean, Bayer, I know that Bayer sent over their vaccines to France, and I think it was something like 150,000 people died, and you can't even raise a lawsuit against Bayer. The power that they have, that's anthrax is just the precursor. That's the training for the big show that's coming up, which is the Ebola outbreak. And
Well, with that said, Jeff, we got actually 2 questions that came in from a caller, and I'm just going to go ahead and ask these to the whole roundtable, so anybody can jump in on this if they want to. The first question is, what is the agenda of the Ebola false flag? What is your guys' opinion? Because, of course, nobody actually knows their true agenda, but your opinions.
This thing may not be a false flag, it like the surface may be, but the actual outbreak seems like a dream come true to the people in charge.
Yeah.
It's a great point, but
my opinion of a false flag is any event that the government uses to take more control. So even though the event may be real, they use it to their advantage to take more control, and that's what I call a false flag. And this is the false flag because it's the perfect stepping stone for Obama to write off, to sign that signature calling in for martial law, which makes our United States government, what's left of it, obsolete, and that makes our Constitution completely obsolete. And that means the order chain of command then becomes President, then it becomes FEMA, DOD, and then the UN, because our own soldiers have already been proven that they're not going to shoot and fire and attack U.S. citizens. UN, there's another executive order in there, if you scroll through, that allows or allots for the UN to step in the state of a national emergency to help out. All the DOD has to do is inform FEMA that we need the assistance, and the UN steps in. Our government supplies them. Everybody wants to know, why is FEMA buying up millions and millions of 223 rounds? Because the UN shoots 223. FEMA and DOD shoot 223. United States military shoots 5.56. The reason for that is so on the battlefield we can determine who fired what round. Was it a soldier, or was it UN or DOD or whatever? So
are those the hollow tip rounds, by the way?
That they're buying up. What's that?
Are those the hollow tipped rounds? The 223?
No, the hollow point and whatnot doesn't make a difference. It's just a very, very minute difference between the round. It's so minute you can't even tell with the naked eye, really. You got to measure it with micrometer to see the difference. It's just enough of a difference so that you can tell which type of soldier shot the bullet. Without having to do rifle testing and everything else. You can look at the bullet and say this, an armorer can look at the bullet and say this is a 223 or this is a 5.56. So when they do forensics and stuff like that, they can say the UN fired the bullet or the militia group fired the bullet. So what's happening is that the DOD and FEMA are buying up billions of rounds of ammunition, which is what caused the ammunition shortage. But that ammunition, everybody thinks and focused on why is DOD and FEMA buying up all the ammo? What do they need all that ammo for? It's not for them. It's for the UN soldiers that are coming in to fight on their behalf, to control our population because they know our soldiers won't do it. That's why they're buying up 223 rounds. Our soldiers shoot 5.56. If they wanted to control the population, they would be shooting 5.56 rounds and buying up 5.56 rounds, not 223. 5.56 is a NATO round.
How many? You know how many NATO soldiers are currently stationed in the United States? Do you have any estimate?
Well, there is a difference between NATO and UN. You know, a NATO soldier and a UN soldier are two different soldiers.
Yes, of course, but
I don't know the numbers.
When we see the videos of all the UN trucks, okay, so we'll say UN soldiers, that it seems, of course, that's the heart of the beast anyways, right? So the UN soldiers, you see all the trucks, all the vehicles that are being, transported here and there, the FEMA camps. Is that what we're looking at in the future, the near future?
Oh, yeah. I think it's all these UN vehicles that are being brought in, you tell because they're blue and white cap that they're wearing on their heads. All the UN, you look around at all the different states. There's a list pretty much anywhere on the internet you can find these days, a complete list of the 800 FEMA camps around the country. Now, compare that list with the addresses of the 800 FEMA camps and compare that to the maps and the sightings of all the UN transports.
And where they're bringing in all of the...
To these 800 FEMA camps all across the country. And there's even a couple of FEMA camps up there in Canada.
Yes.
So you're seeing all the UN forces merging around all these FEMA camp areas, and you're seeing that that's also where the ammo dumps and stuff are that FEMA and DOD are buying up. They're staging, and all they need is for Obama to have a reason to sign that statement declaring martial law. And all they need to sign the statement to declare martial law so that his executive orders of succession will kick in is some excuse like an expected Ebola outbreak. I'm not saying it is the excuse, but it is a possible excuse, and it's a damn good one.
I wanted to ask you, in regard to this Ebola, with your experience, I know that you do a lot of natural healing and that. What would you give for advice to people to kind of prepare themselves, stave off any illnesses? I wanted to kind of touch on that subject a little bit too for the public.
Okay. Well, in order to protect yourself, you need to know and understand the chain of infection. So there's 6 stages to the chain of infection, and I'll just give you real quick the different stage titles. You have the portal of escape, which is where the infection gets out. You have the reservoir of a pathogen, which is a human being, animals, or an inanimate object like that Kleenex I was telling you about earlier on the table, as long as it's still moist. You have the transmission, where it goes from one person to the next. You have the route of entry, or the infectious dose. That's where it goes in your, how you can take it in. You could eat it, breathe it, mixed needles, blood, however it gets into your body. Then once it's in your body, you have to be susceptible to that. Not everybody is it's susceptible to everything. And then it has an incubation period. And then once this breaches the incubation period, then that's when you become the portal of escape at that point, and the chain of infection starts over in kind of a circle. And what you need to do, what you want to know is how to break that chain of infection. In order to break that chain of infection, you need to know how the stages of the communicability is. That's kind of a hard word to say, but you have the incubation period where the pathogen replicates in the host. Then you have a prodromal period where you start to feel the signs and symptoms, like your fevers, your fatigue, sweating, coughing, and stuff like that. Then you have the illness period with the clinical signs and symptoms, where you have the, you're oozing out of your orifices and stuff with the snot and maybe bleeding or whatever disease or virus that you're affected by, and what those things. For instance, with Ebola, you can have runny nose, coughing, sneezing, headaches, dizzy, nausea, just like you would with the flu in the early stages. And in the late stages, you're going to have diarrhea and maybe blood in your stool. And in the very late stages, your vessels will start collapsing, and you could even start showing bumps, muscular bumps and stuff on your face. Stuff like that can get quite nasty. Then you have the convalescent period, which is the signs and symptoms recede, and you start to feel better, and you start to return to health. And then you have the portion where the host could become, not necessarily will, become a chronic carrier of the infectious agent. And then, so now that if you understand that, you understand the chain of infection, how it's going, how it works. So how you want to break that? So if you don't have it, you want to make sure that you, one, isolate yourself from those people who do have it or suspected to have it. You want to stay out of areas that will most definitely have spreads or outbreaks. And with, especially with Ebola, you may not know you even have it for the first, I think it's 2 to 3 days, up to 7 to 10 days. With this new strain, it's hard to tell because they keep changing the numbers constantly. Right. So you may not even know it in the first few days. That means other people may not even know it in the first few days. You could travel all the way around the world in 5 days on an airplane. And so your best bet is to stay away from airports right now. Airports and bus stations, I wouldn't go anywhere near them. Don't use public transportation, because everybody going to bus stations and airports are using public transportation to get to and from their vehicles that they left when they went on vacation to the airport to leave. Now they're coming back using the public transportation to get back to their vehicle to go home. All right, so stay away from public transportation for a while. Don't go to the mall. Don't go to the big place. Don't go to places where there's going to be large populations of people until you know for a fact that it's under control. That's the isolation technique is the best way to make sure you don't get it at all, especially if it's not an airborne. If it's contagious via contact, then isolation is the number one and basically the only proven way not to get anything. The other next thing you want to do is if you do have contact, you want to make sure that you wash your hands immediately. Don't touch your face or anything. If you have to go out in an area where you think people may be, wear a face mask, wear some kind of eye protection. Regular eyeglasses don't count because they don't suck up to your face. You know, some kind of goggles. Wear gloves. And again, you want to wash and everything. Be careful. When you're taking this stuff off of you, your gloves are the last thing that come off. In fact, what I would do is when you put on all your gear, and then you got your gloves on, you go out and you're working around the people who are sick, then when you come back, you take off your infected gloves and you put on a fresh pair of gloves. And then and then now that you have a fresh pair of gloves on, then you use those to take your goggles off and your mask off and your other gear off, and then you remove that new pair of gloves, take those off, and then you go and wash everything. And when you wash, you make sure that the water runs away from the body. So when you wash your hands, you start at the elbow and wash downward. towards the hands. You don't wash at the hands, wash towards the elbow, because that brings it to you. You wash away from you. And same thing with other parts of your body that you may be washing. You want to, this is like extreme cases. You need to understand, like, what environment are you going into, and just how much protection are you going to need. Right now, it's spreading through contact with bodily fluids, and that includes sneezing and coughing as far as I'm concerned. So you want to make sure that you keep the distance away, and you're not going to be trapped in an elevator. If you see somebody get in an elevator that's sneezing and coughing, go use the staircase. Okay? In fact, just don't get in closed spaces, period, for a while. If you yourself are sick, you want to use a mask, and you want to make sure that when you cough and sneeze, that a lot of people, you see a lot of the ads and the articles and stuff that say cough in your arm, don't cough in your hands if you got to cough or sneeze. Well, a lot of people cough and sneeze into their arm, but what do they do when they see a loved one? Then they go and hug that person, right? So if you coughed into the crease of your elbow or sneezed into the crease of your elbow and you're sick, and then you go and give somebody a hug, it's just the same as sneezing in your hand and shaking their hand, because you just smeared your arm all over that person, right? Or if you're in New York or any major city or in the mall or something like that, and you cough and sneeze in your arm, and you're walking through a crowd, and your arm is rubbing and bumping and smearing all over everybody else, it's just as bad as your hand. The people that created that advertisement doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. The best thing to do, and also handkerchiefs. You got a handkerchief in your pocket, you pull that handkerchief out, and you cough and sneeze in it, and then you shove it back in your pocket, and you pull it out again. That's not doing anything for you. It's becoming more and more and more contagious. You need disposable Kleenexes. One of the best things to do, if you really, really want to make sure that you don't spread anything, you would have a packet of disposable Kleenex and a packet of disposable Ziploc bags, and you would sneeze or whatever, clean yourself up with the Kleenex, stuff it in a Ziploc bag, and then throw the Ziploc bag away. That's the extreme case. Don't reuse anything. And always make sure you're washing hands. Hand sanitizer doesn't work. Okay, and I can give you a couple of examples why. Okay, do you understand how the flu is transmitted? Like, really understand how the flu is transmitted, not all the hype?
No. No, please tell us.
Okay, nobody's eating at the moment, right? Okay, the flu is not transmitted by sneezing. It is not transmitted by sharing food with somebody. It is not transmitted by kissing. It is not transmitted by sex. It is not transmitted by any other way than oral fecal. What that means is if somebody has the flu, in order for you to get it from them, you have to eat their poop. Okay? So if your wife has the flu and you get the flu from her, that's because you ate her poop molecules. Do you know how you got those poop molecules?
Yeah, from a fart, right?
Hand sanitizer. What's that?
From a fart, or for somebody going to the washroom and having a bowel movement and the particles still being in the air?
Because they didn't, it could be, it'd have to be a really bad fart. But it's more of they go and they wash their hands and they don't wash their hands properly, or they use hand sanitizer. What hand sanitizer does, the molecules are solid particles, right? And they use a hand sanitizer, and that hand sanitizer will coat that particle, and it kills everything on the outside of that solid particle. But there's nothing in a hand sanitizer that gives it penetrating power. So when you get that particle and so you take a dump, and you've got the flu. You come out of the bathroom, you use hand sanitizer on your hand because it's made out of alcohol, and it says it kills 99.9%. You know why they say 99.9% and not 100%? Because it doesn't have any penetrating power. When you use hand sanitizer on your hand, the poop is still on your hand. Yeah, you didn't wash anything away. You didn't remove anything. You just smeared it around. The hand sanitizer killed what's on the outside of the particle. Now you eat that particle, and you just keep making yourself sick over and over and over. And then when you shake hands with somebody, you transfer those particles to somebody else, and they don't know it. And then they eat, and then they get that particle inside their stomach. Your stomach digests the outside of the shell that was killed by the hand sanitizer, but now the inside of that particle is now exposed. You've just been exposed to the flu virus. And that's how you get the flu, from eating somebody else's poop. Oral fecal is how it's transmitted. And a lot of diseases are transmitted that way. And the people just don't understand it because they don't show it in the news. They don't teach you this. This isn't education that you get unless you go to school for it.
Yeah.
And so you need to, once you understand how something is truly transmitted, then you don't need vaccines. You don't need, immunization does not necessarily mean vaccination. You can immunize yourself without shooting yourself full of drugs. You don't have to become a drug addict to be immunized.
Right.
I haven't taken a vaccine in 14 years. In 2000, when I went through, when I became a combat medic in the year 2000, I went through the series of shots. After that, I said no more. I found another medic who had the same idea as I did, and we were in the same unit. And whenever it came up time to redo our vaccines, I would sign off on his, and he would sign off on mine as if we took them. So there was a record that we took them, but we didn't really take them. I've gone the last 14 years without taking a vaccine. I eat a lot of green vegetables. I eat meat. I live a healthy, fit lifestyle, despite being 15% paralyzed. And I have not been sick for 14 years. I can walk into a full disease-infested room where everybody's got flu. I've worked with N1H1 patients, not having any vaccines, not taking anything for it. I've had N1H1 patients vomit all over me and walked out and not get sick because of my healthy diet and my lifestyle of not being a germaphobe. And if you go through life being a germaphobe, there's a time for it and there's not a time for it. Proper hand washing technique takes 1 minute, a minimum of 1 to 2 minutes to wash your hands properly. To actually, you wash your hands. You wash your hands before you eat. If you're handling stuff like raw meat and stuff like that, just use your brain. You're handling something that could possibly be infectious. Wash your hands. And clean the table as necessary. When you chop up chicken, clean the table when you're done. Don't let it sit there. Raw chicken doesn't instantly have salmonella. Raw eggs don't instantly have salmonella. It forms hours later from sitting there. So you don't need antibacterial stuff. You don't have to kill everything in the house just to clean it up. You wipe it up, clean it up, remove the evidence from there, and then it's gone. Everybody wants a sterile environment. You walk into Walmart these days, you have the antibacterial wipes, you pull it off, you clean your cart, and then you go through. For thousands of years, we lived and went through, and we didn't have all these diseases. Some people died, but the majority of life lived. Humans have walked the earth for 4 million years. It was only the last 1,000 years that we started having trouble because we started mass populating in small areas. We had the Black Plague that came out because a large group of people crammed into a tiny little space and started tossing their human waste in the streets. Rats came in, started eating that human waste, and fleas started biting them. A disease broke out with the fleas, and creating the Black Plague or whatever. It hit the people, cross-transmitted that way. People got sick. As soon as a large population died off, the amount of human waste in the streets cleared up. The rats went away. The disease went away. Nobody had vaccines back then. It deals with mass populations or overpopulations of tiny areas coming together, creating the environment that they live in. Spread out. There's no need to have your house 5 feet from the house next to you. There's all the land across the world.
Well, sure, and they're accumulating us en masse into these cities, and it's just building like London was. And
it's Agenda 21. That's exactly what they said. Yeah.
Sure.
They don't want us to have that option at all, and
No.
they're quickly removing it from all these rural areas, and it's happening right across the world.
Yeah, I agree.
So stop taking these vaccines, and stop using the hand sanitizer. Stop taking the vaccines. Use proper hand washing techniques, which you can find on YouTube. It's all over YouTube how to wash your hands properly, and wash your hands properly when you need to. And what happens is every single day as you're out in life, your immune system is designed to be attacked daily, right? Every single day when you go out in life, you get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it's coming in your body, and your body's getting bombarded by all this minute bits of disease and everything as you walk through life. And your immune system takes that and it says, oh, I can kill this off, it's nothing. And it kills this off, and it kills that off, and it kills this off, and it makes this huge ingredient list off on the left, right? So it's got thousands of bacteria and viruses and everything that it's killed off with no problems because you're bombarded with it every day. Now all of a sudden you get something really big that comes in, right? And it may make you sneeze or cough a little bit. But you get this big virus that you've never come across before, which is a mutation of all these little ones that you've been fighting off daily for your entire life. So it comes in, and your immune system's going to take it, and it's going to catch one of them floating through your body, and it's going to do its best. It's going to break it up, and it's going to look at the ingredients, just like baking a cake. And it's going to look at all the ingredients inside that virus or bacteria that's attacking it, and it's going to say, oh, I've got the ingredients to fight those. And it opens up that ingredient book on this left, and like the cupboard, and it pulls out this and that and this and that, makes its own antivirus, and it slams it and throws it at it, and then boom, it's gone. It's natural immunity, and it kills off that virus, pushes it out of your body, and says, get the hell out of here. Now, to boost that, you eat a healthy diet, which makes your immune system even stronger. A lot of green vegetables, a lot of stuff like garlic, dandelion, peppers is great. Any blood medicine out there except for one, which is a synthetic. All blood medications out there that are based on started out as a plant. They all start out as capsaicin. It's the baseline ingredient, the number one active ingredient of all blood medications and heart medications and stroke medications out there. And a lot of the immuno disease medications out there have capsaicin and stuff in it. So eat a lot of peppers. It burns that stuff out of you. If you don't like pop peppers and stuff, they come in capsules, so you never even know. You don't ever feel the burn. You can have all the capsaicin you want and never even know it. Just don't take the capsaicin with the garlic pill at the same time. Then you'll know. Right. But you put garlic and capsaicin and dandelions and stuff, and, whatever, just eat healthy. Iceberg lettuce, it's not eating healthy. It may be green, but there's no value in it. Celery, there's no value in it. Unless you got the runs. So, but you need stuff like spinach and stuff like that. Dark green vegetables, spinach, broccoli, green beans are my 3 number 1 vegetables. And try to stay away from the genetically modified stuff. I know it's hard, but for you poor people out there like myself, Walmart actually has a whole line of non-GMO products now, or at least mine does. So, it's just hard if you don't have any place else to go. I live so far out in the boonies that I actually have to drive 25 miles into town just to get to the nearest grocery store. So sometimes I have to go to Walmart, unfortunately. But to build up your own immunization, it takes time. Germaphobes that have been purifying everything before you use it. Now, I'm not saying, go out there and drink dirty water out of a puddle. That's just pure stupidity. But, use common sense. If it's dirty, clean it. But don't don't go overboard.
But Ryan, I find it's really important to tell your children, go out and play in the dirt. Go out and play with worms. Yes. I eat worms, and I'm fine.
I pay my Boy Scouts to eat worms.
Yeah. No, it builds everything from around you, so it builds your immunity. So, but I'm Ryan. I really
is eat honey from real bees, real honey from bees in your area, and you'll lose your allergies.
Yeah, my dad's a beekeeper, and that's what we do is we raise our own honey, and it's really important. I think it builds up the immunity system through the pollen, through the, it takes all the flower pollen, everything, and none of my kids have allergies to anything. So, it is important to take your environment and consume it in a different type of way. That being said, Brian, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. Our other guests are waiting to come on. Are you still there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't mean to cut you short. I would love to have you back if you would be interested. I think that as this Ebola and this flesh-eating disease and various other aspects of this scare is going on, I think you're a very invaluable resource, and we would like to have you back.
Definitely.
And if you,
definitely come back anytime you want me.
Thank you very much. You can stay if you'd like to. We have a band coming on, and I'm going to